So you just hit level 50, unlocked your Chaos Dungeons and Guardian raids, and you're super excited to swap off that old leveling build, right? That's great, because I'm here to show you how to become a bubbling, buffing, and healing machine. I'm also streaming Lost Ark on Twitch, so come catch my live support content there. Links in the description. And if this video helped you out, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. So for this build, I'm not only going to go over some of the best skills to use as a support bard, but also how to use them and what they offer to your kit. And as a disclaimer, this build is for fresh level 50s with low skill points. I'll make an updated build later down the road for higher skill points as well. This build also isn't for Chaos Dungeons or solo content, since it doesn't do a lot of damage. This is for a group setting in PvE content, but I'll also have a build up for those as well too. The first skill in this build I'm going to go over is your debuff, Sound Shock. Later on, you'll have 2 debuffing skills, as you'll have enough skill points for level 3 Harp of Rhythm, and you'll alternate between using them, but for now, you're only going to have Sound Shock. You're going to want this skill at tier 2 with Maintained Explosion and Sacred Shock. Sacred Shock provides you with the debuff Note Brand for 2 seconds, allowing you and your party to damage the branded enemy for 10% more. You will want to use this skill before using your other DPS skills like Soundholic. And really, you should practice using this off cooldown so your party can always be doing more DPS to the boss. This skill has a long hit range as well, so it's pretty easy to keep up as much as possible. Next is your major DPS and stagger skill, Soundholic. You want to grab Sound Concentration, Sustain Enhancement, and Focus Fire. These massively increase the damage of this skill, especially Focus Fire as it turns the skill stationary, but it increases the damage by 700%. Since this is the hardest hitting skill in your kit, it's great both for helping to DPS bosses, along with building up your Serenade meter. More Serenade meter equals more healing and big damage boosts. Try to use the skill from behind if you can for more damage, but be careful, since while casting this, you are stationary, so it's really easy to get knocked out of it. The next 2 skills you want to grab are Harp of Rhythm and Prelude of Storm. These skills are super amazing at helping to fill up your Serenade meter faster, so that you can throw out more damage buffs or healing buffs from your identity skill. For Harp of Rhythm, you want to grab Summoning Will for a longer duration and Melody Increase for that sweet Serenade meter boost. This skill works like a totem that you place on the ground, and it will damage the boss if it's in range. It actually fills your Serenade meter regardless of if it's hitting anything or not, so you should use this off cooldown. Later on, you'll want to make sure it does hit the boss for the debuff though once you get it to tier 3 with no brand. Prelude of Storm is a simple lightning attack and a stun, and you want to grab Quick Prep to reduce the cooldown and Melody Increase for a 150% Serenade meter boost. Try to use this off cooldown to build up your meter faster. Next, I'm going to go into your 3 major buffing skills: Heavenly Tune, Guardian Tune, and Sonic Vibration. Heavenly Tune is your group-wide damage, attack speed, and MP recovery buff. This skill is absolutely amazing, and it's an essential part of your support kit. You're going to max this out, grabbing Quick Prep, Tough Tune, and Intense Tune. The last tier is what turns it into an attack buff as well. This skill has a large circle animation, but party members can actually be pretty far away from the circle and still get the buff. You can see the red attack buff icon on their bars to know that they got it. When you're new, you can practice using this skill off cooldown during boss fights. And when you're more experienced, you can practice using it during high damage windows to really help your DPS push. Next up is Guardian Tune. This gives a nice party-wide 26% damage reduction buff, and with Mind Enhancement and Endless Protection, it costs less mana and provides an 8-second 15% shield when it expires. You could use Powerful Protection as well for more damage reduction, but the blue shield for me feels stronger due to how long it lasts. Also, this skill has a very large radius like Heavenly Tune, and you can just double check your party's bars to see if they got the buff. You should also use this skill off cooldown for lots of damage reduction. And finally, the last of your buffing skills, Sonic Vibration. This isn't quite as strong as the other 2 in the buffing department, but with the first 2 skills, Tenacity for push immunity and Brilliant Wave, it works to give out an extra attack buff for your party. Your members do have to walk into the area of the skill to receive the attack buff, but the skill is usually pretty easy as people group up onto the back of the boss often. The attack buff only lasts for 2 seconds, and you want to make sure that you use it when your team doesn't have the Heavenly Tune attack buff on, as they don't stack. So make sure you're checking your party's bars for that red buff before you use it. And finally, I'm going to talk about your 2 shielding skills. Although one of them is your awakening skill and you won't be putting points into it. Wind of Music is your main low cooldown bubbling skill. You're going to grab Quick Prep, Melody Increase, and Wind of Protection. With these, this skill gives a 25% of max HP bubble for 4 seconds, which is amazing. A note for this skill, as you learn boss mechanics, try to time it to preemptively tank some damage. And when you're new, try learning the AoE range of the skill as it is pretty short and it takes a bit of getting used to. Symphonia is amazing as your awakening skill, and you're super lucky because you get it as your first awakening skill, am I right? As it gives off a 100% of max HP shield to your party members, along with some damage and debuffs to enemies. With the awakening engraving, you'll be able to get this off every 2.5 minutes. Which is great because using it also gives you a full Serenade meter bar to do with as you will. This might sound like a no-brainer, but try to use this skill when you know the boss isn't about to run away, and you can use this skill when you know you're able to prevent high incoming damage. And speaking of engravings, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over them here. However, I do have a Bard's engraving video up that goes over the best ones. I highly recommend checking it out as they make a big difference for your awakening and healing. There was also a great change for NAEU where when you use your Serenade meter, leftover meters that weren't filled up all the way are retained and you can keep building them. So if you have 1 bar of meter and an extra half bar of unused meter, you can throw down your heal and then keep building that half meter back up afterward. And speaking of your meter, most of the time you can throw your heal down with just 1 bar full, especially if you have your class engraving up to a higher level, as it already heals for so much that saving it up to 3 bars oftentimes is just overhealing. You can, however, save up more bars for your damage buff, as the level 3 Serenade of Courage buff is pretty awesome. The last point I want to cover are your stagger skills, as some raids and dungeons require them or you wipe. Soundholic has an amazing stagger, and Sonic Vibration also has a stagger. If your team is having a lot of trouble with stagger, you could also bring in Stigma. So to recap, you're going to use Sound Shock off cooldown for your debuff, Heavenly Tune and Sonic Vibration for attack buffs, Guardian Tune for defensive buffs and a bubble, Harp of Rhythm and Prelude of Storm for filling your Serenade meter, and Symphonia and Wind of Music for bubbles. There isn't really a solid set rotation as a bard, but aim to use your important skills off cooldown and practice preemptive shielding as you go. I hope this gave you a good understanding of the build and Bard's kit overall, and that you all have fun practicing. Make sure to go check out my Bard engraving video to finish up your build, and I'll catch you all next time.